All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Trumbull WPCA to order. I am Richard Boggs, Chairman. It is 7:03 p.m. The date is September 23rd. Looking at my calendar, it's wrong. September 23rd, 2020. This meeting is being held by video conference via Zoom. I'd like to ask Margaret to call the roll of all the commissioners that are present.
Richard Boggs.
Present.
Charles Breslin.
Here.
John Green.
Here.
Frank Rugnieri.
Present.
And Scott Thornton.
Are we expecting Scott? Did anybody hear from Scott? Well, we have a quorum, so we'll move on. I'd also like to note that William Moore, Town Engineer and Sewer Administrator, and Town Attorney James Nugent are also present on the call. I'd like to remind participants to identify yourself every time you speak, and where appropriate, provide your title, such as WPCA Commissioner, which applies to most of us. Again, only one person should speak at a time. All votes will be taken by a roll call of seated members that Margaret will take care of for us. All right, first item, approval of minutes. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review the minutes from our July 22nd meeting. Hope you all enjoyed your month off. Not that you can actually go anywhere these days, but we did get a bit of a break. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Oh, this is John. So moved.
Do we have a second?
This is Frank Rugnieri. So moved.
Okay. Any need for any further discussion at this point? Hearing none, I'd like to ask Margaret to call the roll on approval of the minutes.
Richard Boggs.
Aye.
Charles Breslin.
Aye.
John Green.
Aye.
And Frank Rugnieri.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay, minutes are approved. All right, next item, new business. There is a request for sewers on Finchwood Drive, or the Finchwood Drive area of town, which is just, I guess, I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at the map, but it's east of the fields of St. Joe's. So you guys have an idea, very close to the Shelton line. But Bill is going to give us a little bit more information on this.
Thank you. We've had a request from a resident on Finchwood that the sewers be extended. The previous contract stopped at Copper Kettle Drive and McDonald Road to the west, and there's a whole section off of Huntington Turnpike, between Huntington Turnpike and the Shelton line that are missing sewers. The lots are bigger. I'm not sure why the reasoning was why they stopped at that last section. I did inquire at the health department as to the number of septic failures that they've had in that area, and they had records back to 2015 that only had one septic failure. There may have been others, but that's all they had a record for.
Okay. I don't know if there's any, well, there's no action for us to take, but I think we do owe Ms. Tedesco a response, just to kind of let her know the status, because I know people that are concerned about the life expectancy of their septic systems. You know, it's helpful to have a sense of how likely and how quickly sewers might be put into their particular area. I think it's safe to say that this is not part of the next phase, obviously. The next phase really focused on sort of higher density lots, getting the best bang for our buck in terms of putting in mains. This area is a little bit kind of more sparse, certainly more sparse than the area that's on schedule, although they're, you know, acknowledging there are other parts of town that are comparable that have already gotten sewers. So does anybody have any other thoughts, contrary or otherwise to that? And we can direct Bill to provide that response.
Yeah, this is John. I just can't see this over the next 2, 3, 4 years. But I'm curious, what was the motivation for the request if there's not a pattern of failures there?
I think that the resident has concerns about their age of their septic system and that the likelihood of that failing and the availability of a sewer. Repairs of an existing system can be quite costly, and to have a repair and then a couple years later to actually have an assessment for a sewer is quite burdensome. It's a huge cost on both, for both.
Yeah. Is there any record of any planning that was done in terms of projecting forth by prior versions of this body? When that area might be covered, if that area might be covered?
I would have to look further into it. I do not know. We'd have to go back into history and to see whether, what motivated them to stop at Copper Kettle and at McDonald Road. Was it just the size of the project? I don't know.
Well, that was a fairly large project as it was, so.
Yeah, you gotta say stop sometime.
Yeah, so it may have been arbitrary or it may have been geographically driven, I don't know, but it was a good sized project, even with what they did, so. Seems rational that they would have stopped before they got to the Shelton line. Again, my thoughts are I don't see this on our plans for the near term unless somebody knows something I don't. How do we have a strategy for projecting forward additional areas of town? And has there one ever been created?
I don't know that for a fact.
This is Chip Harrison. At what point was the project that stopped there completed? How recent was that?
That was a contract 4.
So that was recent.
It was the one that was completed in 2010, pretty much, 2011.
Okay. And how much, so this portion wasn't done, and
Right.
this is just a small fraction of what was done, I would take it.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it was Huntington Turnpike to the west, Isinglass, Briarwood, Finchwood, Foxwood, Ironwood, Applegate, Cherrygate. I don't know the number of residents there. I haven't researched that, but
I was just trying to get an idea of whether it was a large section or is this just a small bit at the end that wasn't done?
The lots are relatively large, compared to other sections of town. I mean, they're all 1 acre lots, I believe.
So if they had a failure, they have room to put in another.
Yes, well,
as opposed to some
not
of the,
necessarily, but yes, they
Yeah,
have more of a potential to have room.
Yeah, that's an important consideration. Like the contract 5, a lot of those lots don't really have opportunities to
yeah,
move their leaching fields and so forth. This area, that's less of an issue for sure. Frank, one question I had: do you know what the rock situation is in that area, that part of town?
I don't know.
There's a fair amount of wetlands in that
Frank, I
area.
meant Bill.
There's a fair amount of
thinking of the old
wetlands in that area. That may be a concern, and Trumbull's either wetlands or rocks, so I don't know. Take your pick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a non-trivial amount of land in that area. I mean, it's a size. If just looking at glancing at it, looks like it's not that different from the project we're talking about undertaking in the near future. But again, with fewer houses, probably because of the lot sizes.
Right.
Right. The linear feet of Maine might be comparable, but it's going to serve fewer residents or fewer residences, I should say.
So
Okay.
I guess the question is what you know, I have two questions. One, how are we going to answer the short term? And then second, like I said, should we be undertaking a prioritization of future properties in the sections of the town that remain uncovered? Any thoughts? Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think a prioritization of, you know, I don't know how comprehensive we want to suggest that be, but I got to believe there's something that's been done previously. Like, I have a vague
Yeah.
recollection of that. Like,
Actually,
know
I think
that-
we have to submit to the state, you know, our future areas. I believe Christine, if you want to promote Christine Kurtz and Vanessa to participate, I know Christine has worked on the projection for the state, I believe.
Yes, well, I just saw a chat. So Christine just put in the chat box, there is a draft plan that was done a while back. So and there she is. So I'll let her speak. You're muted.
Thank you. Yes, so under the previous administration, there is a draft plan as required by Office of Policy and Management. You have to stay in consistency with your C&D, conservation and development mapping. The area that you guys are working on planning or currently planning to do right now, what you're calling Contract 5, the entire thing, is essentially your last real area to sewer. There's infill that may happen here and there. I don't know where this particular home is that you're talking about or area, but
It's in the
yeah.
northwest corner.
Okay, I
The
think
northeast
Yeah, it's
corner.
almost in Shelton.
Yeah, it was almost in Shelton. Northeast.
so we can look at the map to make sure, but you do have a draft plan on any future service areas, but you're coming to the end of your big picture planning for the entire town.
Okay, so there were sections of town that were not even in the plan.
Correct.
That was drafted.
Right.
Got it.
Mhm. They're
Okay.
they're referred to as sewer avoidance areas often.
Okay.
That's an interesting term. This is John again. Could we get a copy of that plan? I don't know who has it on file, whether Bill has to dig it out of the files or what have you.
Yeah,
but-
well, we can get you a copy. I'm
All right,
sure we
thank
have
you.
it someplace.
Bill, this is Frank. You said Primrose Drive was done or not done?
Primrose Drive was done.
So Kettle,
Copper Kettle. If you
Kettle.
want, I can pull up, if you want me to share the screen, I can show you.
Yeah, let's do that. I think looking at a map will be helpful.
because it's pretty close.
Yeah, well, not really.
Copper Kettle. Yeah, we looked at that earlier. It's
Hang on a minute, I gotta. Ugh.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong Copper Kettle. It's the one that's right behind the ball field, the football field, or sports field.
Yes. But, well, the person with the concern is on Finchwood, which is way up from Copper Kettle.
Oh, okay.
And my map is not being cooperative.
I
Oh,
believe
yeah.
it is uphill a bit as well, I think.
Okay.
Bill, would the sewer map that I have work?
Yeah, probably. If you want to share that?
Yeah. I'll
I
try.
just went, you could just go to Google Maps, Bill.
Bill Chin, it's not letting me browse to get to where I need to go. What am I doing wrong?
Well, what are you trying to do?
I want to get something off my desktop to share.
Okay, if you open up that file first.
Open the file first?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at the bottom of your Zoom window, hit share screen. A window will pop up. Click
I
on
got
that.
it.
And then,
Okay. That's a little different than the daytime meetings. Okay. Can everybody see it now? Did it share?
It's there, but it's very, very small.
Okay, let me see what I can do with that.
It's the area where it says J. J5 and K5 is the.
J5 and K5? Okay, so let me zoom it there. Oh, so slow.
Now you're at the other area, we have no sewers.
It's very, very slow. I apologize. New definition of dragging.
There we go.
There you go. Can you see that now? Copper Kettle is here. Finchwood is up here.
And McDonald, show McDonald Road.
Uh,
To the
That's
left.
right. That's to the left, yeah.
Up,
there it is.
right there.
You
Got
can
it.
see the, yeah, you can see where the sewers are, so.
So the whole section, Hidden Pond, Stone Throw, Nichols Farm, Shadowwood, Isinglass Terrace, Friar Lane, Fitchwood, Fox Road, Ironwood, Cherry Gate, and there's another road in there that has no name, and that's Applegate.
Right here.
Yes, I believe that's Applegate.
Okay.
And then that big piece of land in the middle is pretty much St. Joe's.
Got
That's
it.
interesting, yeah, because looking at the Google Maps, it wasn't really obvious where the town line was, but there's, boy, yeah, there's really not much. I thought more of Isinglass was in Trumbull.
I very little, I believe.
Yeah.
If any. Isinglass Terrace is.
Yeah, no, Isinglass Road kind of winds around and then ends up by the reservoir.
Right.
Off screen there. All right, well, I think the message still is the same. It's, this is not part of the current plan. So it's safe to assume there will not be sewers in this area for the next better part of a decade, at least. So, any other comments before we move on from that?
Yeah, this is Chip Harrison, just to be clear, is there a request to put sewers in, or is the request to find out if there's a plan to put sewers in so they wouldn't repair the existing septic system?
I believe the letter asked why we didn't extend, why they weren't included in the other section.
Okay.
I believe that's what that letter was.
So it sounds like a request for them.
Yes.
Right. And do we have an answer then for that to the specific question asked? Why they weren't included? I mean, like I said, it sounds like they kind of went as farthest they could go in terms of hitting the high density areas, but that's just speculative on my part.
We'll have to do a little more investigating to see why it wasn't.
Yeah, the letter, I mean, I just pulled up the letter. It's in the packet that everybody received, but the last paragraph says, please, and this letter is dated October 16th of 2018. So this is from 2 years ago. This came from, oops, sorry. This came from Amy Tedisco Bronstein, addressed to Frank Smurillo. There's a reference to prior conversations to the letter that she had with Frank. Home was built in 1976, still on the original septic. The last paragraph says, please accept this letter as a request for the town of Trumbull to put forth a plan to install sewers in Finchwood Drive and other neighboring streets. I would appreciate you forwarding this letter to the WPCA. So I don't know if there was any act or what action followed this letter 2 years ago, but a request has been made by a single resident to provide sewers. There are a couple of chats that have come in. Well, both from a resident who's a neighbor who's approaching the end of the useful life of their septic system. House is built around the same time. So, I think we understand that people need to have a sense of whether this is in the planning, in the works, the likelihood that's going to happen at all, the likelihood that's going to happen anytime soon. I think it's safe to say it will not happen anytime soon because it's not even on the plan for contract 5. It's kind of totally independent from any other areas that might be where we might contemplate extending the sewers. I think it's fair to say that we should study this a little further. And Bill, you mentioned there might be some more information. Obviously, we can pull up the plan and ask Christine to kind of go through and see if it makes any sense to consider this under a subsequent contract. I think right now that's all we can do.
I guess related to this, it looks like on some of the attendees that Amy Tedisco is here and another Vincent Santilli. I don't know how this is supposed to work, but it looks like they have their hands raised. So
I did not see that.
I don't want to ignore them if that's something that, I don't know how the protocol of the Zoom meeting works.
Well, what other issues do we have to go through? Do we want to?
They've also have some questions.
Well, I think rather than pulling in multiple residents, I would ask them to direct questions to Bill, because we're going to be looking into this and getting a little bit more information moving forward. The commission is now, at least it's safe to say, the commission's aware of this request, which I don't know if that was, to the extent that happened earlier. There will be an opportunity to speak at the next meeting. I think we'll be in a better position to be able to answer any questions and maybe do a little bit of digging into the history. Because right now there's nobody here that was involved in any of these discussions, as far as we know. So, I suspect that the questions will be, why wasn't this done? And none of us can answer that. Why wasn't it part of contract 4? And we've kind of looked at it and we don't know. We have theories, but we don't know if they're accurate or correct. So yeah, we need a little bit of time to do a little bit of digging to respond to that. Okay. Let me just check the chat box and see if, yeah, but I think in response to septic systems in that area that are either failing or close to failing, yeah, it'll be years, probably more than 4 or 5 at a minimum, maybe substantially more, before you see sewers in that area. So it's safe to say that, yeah, septic repairs will be required if they're called for now or in the next couple of years. Anybody else have anything to add to that before we move on? Okay. Next item is another big one, corrosion probe update, and Bill has some more information for us on that as well.
Yes. So recently we did we did two test holes in Beardsley Park, one right at the entrance from Beardsley Park, and one right before it crosses the river. We actually sent out the draft report earlier today. The the report brings to light that actually the pipe looked in better shape than we thought it would look. We were pleasantly surprised that, I mean, there is issues, but the exterior of the pipe did not show any visible corrosion. There was some test locations around the perimeter of the pipe that showed some potential pipe loss on the interior. But for the most part, it was better than we thought, but we're still not out of the woods. We still need to do more. I'm going to let Vanessa speak a little bit. She's been instrumental in the testing and coordinating the testing and talking with the Corrosion probe.
Thank you,
So you want
Bill.
to add to that?
Yeah, so, and maybe would it be helpful also if I share that map again that we looked at the last meeting that showed the test pit locations and the
Absolutely,
point of failure? Okay, let me just
absolutely.
share my screen.
Yeah, one point I should make while you're doing that, I don't know if everybody else had a chance to look through this report, but there's some errors in the orientation. So it said they referred to south as upstream, and I was very confused
Yep.
like trying to understand some of those things. So
I
don't-
apologize. We hustled to try to get that out to everybody since we just recently were out in the field doing the testing, but we have communicated some comments back to Corrosion Probe, and we'll get those typos addressed. So I apologize for
good.
any confusion that may have caused.
Yeah, the map having this map as an attachment to the report would have helped as well. So they may want to do that too.
I can make
a
that.
map.
Yep, I can make that suggestion just so we know exactly where we are on the pipeline. So just let me try, I can zoom in maybe a little bit here so that we're not all needing a magnifying glass to see this. But just to get your bearings, the pump station is here, if you can see my cursor. Again, this is the map that we looked at last time. So the approximate point of failure previously back in January was right around here, which is highlighted in red in the profile. So you're looking at a plan of the pipe on top and the profile down below. So the approach that we had identified to the commission the last time around when we spoke was doing a test pit upstream, which we're calling test pit number 1, and then a test pit right before the piping crosses underneath the river. So those are the two test pits that are referred to in the draft corrosion probe report that you have to look at. And really the intent of these, as Bill mentioned, was to try to get some bounds on what the extents of the bottom of pipe corrosion was that was the failure mechanism, if you will, for the January 2020 break. So I think Bill gave a really good summary there. We didn't find any smoking guns, if you will, when you looked at these two test pit results from Corrosion Probe. They do caution, again, no one has a crystal ball, right? So they've told us about some stories where, you're testing in an isolated portion of the line. We're looking at 2 to 3 feet. There is quite a bit of distance. And there were a few results that showed some thinning of the pipe wall at the bottom of the pipe at the invert, which is what that failure mechanism was, inside out corrosion, which was really concentrated at the bottom. So we did see some thinning, but as Bill said, the outside of the pipe looked like it was in excellent condition, and they did some soil testing in the field as well, which didn't indicate that there were any issues that would cause the pipe to be corroding from the outside in, like corrosive soils or any electromagnetic currents or anything like that. So the good news is it kind of confirmed what we observed to be the mechanism of failure when we analyzed the piping from the break location. And I think it did bound pretty well the two sides of it. So what I think we'd be recommending, and Bill can speak about in a little bit more detail, would be to start looking at either a repair or an outright replacement of a longer section of pipe, because when we did do that repair in 2020, looking up the pipe, we could see a little bit of what Corrosion Probe is seeing with their ultrasonic thickness measurements, thinning at that bottom of the pipe wall. So while not catastrophic and not something that we would anticipate being an emergency repair, it is something that we still need to pay attention to and address.
Vanessa, this is
Yes.
John Green. The report talked about the thickness of the pipe, and it ranged from slightly over 1/3 of an inch to slightly under 1/2 an inch. Do we know what the as-built of that pipe was?
Unfortunately, we don't. The record drawings call out different classes of pipe, but there's no key that indicates what that refers to in terms of a wall thickness. So a lot of the information in the Corrosion Probe report is an average wall thickness that they measured with the UT instrument, not an as-built thickness based on record drawings.
So that's what I was trying to figure out. How much have we lost
Yep.
over the years? And the second question is, do we know what the thickness was at the point of failure, where we actually had the failure?
So we did some measurements there. I believe, does the WPCA have that prior report?
Yeah, we
We
sent
did, and we went over it. I just don't remember it. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if you knew off the top of your head.
I don't. I would have to look back at that older report, but we did have a conversation today with Corrosion Probe in their revisions to this report to reference. They did a lot more testing when we did that pipe coupon testing in the original failure mechanism investigation report. So we've asked them to tie some of those results back to the UT testing results that we did in the test pits.
All right.
And we'll look at wall thickness as well.
All right, thank you.
I can say this, so if you look at we have a new section of pipe and you put it next to the old section that we took out, there's a big difference. It's huge.
And the other thing that they've observed is that the original install of the pipe would have been with a cement mortar lining to protect the interior of the pipe from corrosion from the inside. And we did observe both in the removed section, the coupon testing, and it seems to be evidenced in some of this sporadic thinning that you see around the circumference that they describe in the report, that it does appear that that cement mortar lining is compromised. So that's why you would see some thinning kind of sporadically around the pipe and nothing that's continuous or consistent around just the invert or just the crown, that it's sort of spotty around the circumference.
Yeah, that's one of the results that was kind of surprised me, because I was expecting, based on our previous discussions, to see, some corrosion at the top, some corrosion at the bottom, but it was kind of all over the lot.
Yep.
Well, the other question I had was looking at the recommendations in the report. They mention additional test pits, and I don't. My question is, what's that really going to do for us? And then the ARV, the tape wrapping at the ARVs, which seems like a low cost thing, but with minimal benefit, right? Because that's only protecting you from the external corrosion, which hasn't really been that significant.
I think that we're better served by, you can test 20 more locations between these two pieces, and you can miss it 20 times.
Right.
So to be conclusive, I would think the only other additional test I might consider would be over on Stelzham, on the other side of Route 25, where this is a similar condition, slope-wise of the pipe as what we have on the Beardsley Park side. And just to tie that in to see if we have similar results. And then I think that we should go into design for replacing this section of pipe. The section in the park.
Stilson as well, or just in the park for now?
Just in the park for now, until you see what the results are on Stelzham.
How many feet would that be, Bill?
In the park,
Yes.
it'd probably be 1,500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only
Out of a
guessing.
total of what, 10,000, you said?
Yeah, 9,500 or something like that, round numbers. It's actually the easiest section to bypass in that regard. But it's also the section that's the lowest slope and had probably the lowest velocity in the pipe.
Now, what would you do, and maybe this is a question for Vanessa, what would you do from a design standpoint to make, if we do that, to make the replacement pipe less vulnerable? I mean, are there better linings that are available today that will give us better longevity? Or is there something, I mean, I realize you can't really change the inverts a whole lot.
So a couple of thoughts. I mean, I think a lot of it we've accomplished with the pump station upgrade. I think when you look back to the failure mechanism report and our discussions with Corrosion Probe really indicate to low velocities, as Bill mentioned, and the opportunity for things to settle out without getting a good scouring through the pipe to keep everything in suspension and keep things moving. So the original pump station was outfitted for 3 pumps, but only 2 were ever installed. So the 20-inch force main was really sized for a future condition that the pump station never really was designed up till. Now we have that full capacity to really take advantage of the full 20-inch pipe. So as soon as we're confident that the pipe itself can handle it, we're not going to have those issues with the scour velocity. With the new pumps that have been installed. I think another thing that's good to mention too, Bill, might be in design for a replacement or a repair of the section in the park, having that bypass would give you an opportunity to camera some other sections of the line if you can do an extended bypass to be able to look under the river and actually get eyes on some things that are hard to, especially because the pipe looks so good from the outside, right? I to Richard's point, doing more test pits when the pipe looks great on the outside has limited value. I think it's going to be really critical to see what's going on inside when we have a section out of service to replace.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from anybody else? I mean, we don't, there's no, excuse me. There's no further direction you need from us, Bill, correct? Is there?
No, at this point.
I have a question, Rick, if I could direct
Sure.
it probably to Bill or Vanessa. If we start looking at design to replace that pipe, I mean, I know this is preliminary, but what kind of rough timeline would we be talking about? You know, first getting the design and then being able to go to installation.
I can't answer that question. I think there's more of Vanessa. I mean, what do you think the timeline?
I think we could pull together a set. So we've done a lot of preliminary work already. I mean, we've taken all of the record drawings that we have from the town and put them into AutoCAD Civil 3D. And that's what you're looking at when I shared my screen for the plans and the profiles. So a lot of the prep work on the existing alignment in terms of drawing development is done. So I think we could move fairly quickly with pulling together a design package to implement. The question would really be logistics on the bypass, how much we want to bypass to be able to camera additional sections of the line. But again, we're in constant communication with Bill on this project, so we could coordinate that and include that in design documents fairly quickly. I would say within 2 to 3 months, we should be able to have something that's bid ready, if I had to guess.
Okay. Now, would you, I guess you and Bill have both implied that you can bypass more than just the area that's being replaced, right? So you can.
Yeah, you want to bypass up and downstream from where you're replacing, just so that you can confirm that going backwards, you're not.
Okay, but you would just basically bypass that segment, you know, enlarge somewhat to make sure that you're covering any additional areas. And then you said you would do the other side of 25, you would do that investigation concurrently with the
I would do this, the same corrosion probe type of testing over there. I mean, that's, you know, it's off the shoulder of the road, but it's still between a fence and a guardrail and a road. And it's, you know, it's
Right.
going to be logistics.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's no benefit to like bidding those repairs together, right?
No.
Just because they're isolated, physically isolated.
Bill, this is Frank. What is the city of Bridgeport? Are they going to have a say in this, or is that state park property? Who
Yeah,
owns that?
well, they've been very cooperative. We have to put the park back together from our test pits just so that people can use the park. They've been very cooperative.
Mhm.
We have a pipe that goes through their town. They need to work with us.
So there's no public hearing or anything like that. You have to worry.
Not that I'm aware of. I think, Jim, if you have anything on that, or do we need to do anything on that?
No, really off the top of my head, I don't know, but I think we want to coordinate with their public works department. George Estrada is pretty knowledgeable in
Yes.
that respect down there, so I think he would know the people to talk to see if the DPW in Bridgeport can just authorize the work on its own, or whether they need to, get any other authorization from some other department or person. We'll check with George.
Yeah.
I think shortly. I think we should do that.
Do we, this is Frank still, if we say, okay, let's go ahead and start the engineering, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Get approval to do that? Is there money in the budget, or do we have to get an emergency appropriation?
Well, we have we have in the budget, we put in 400,000 for the force main.
Yes.
So there, I mean, that should be at least our kickoff point, you know? We probably should, in part of the design, we should probably look at, what we should budget going forward for, in the capital plan, what kind of money we should allocate, but that's discussion that based on more information.
So as we sit here, if we agree that you should go forward, which sounds like the proper course, you have the money in the budget to take care of it.
Yes.
At least to take care of the first phase, first part of the work, right?
The engineering.
Yeah. I mean, I realize this is an unfair question because we have no design, but any sense of what the magnitude of the actual repair would run?
Probably more than we really care for.
Well, like everything else, right? But just based on 1,500 linear feet, I mean,
I'm not really sure. I don't
don't
want to throw a
even
number
want
out
to throw
there.
a number out because you'll be stuck with it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
But
So
you
like
got cost of design and cost of the construction.
Yeah,
Right.
we got the added cost of a bypass.
Yeah, the bypass is actually pretty costly itself
Right.
because you got to cut in valves and the whole bit, and then a temporary pipe and the logistics.
Why can't you
Yeah.
put a pipe? Why can't you put a pipe alongside the existing pipe and then do a cut in on a low flow?
You could. We need
We
to
would
look
look
at
at
that
that.
also, and along with lining. I mean, those are a couple of the options that we need to investigate in part of the design phase.
Yeah, because I would imagine the bypass, although you probably keep the pipe stored in your yard and use it, sounds like we're going to be using it.
Right, right. Well, that was my thought, was that, leave it in service. You don't have the bypass and dig a hole alongside of it and put the pipe in and
Cut over.
make your cut-ins. But
Okay.
that has to be worked out in the design.
Anything else from anybody? I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this in future meetings. All right, thanks, Vanessa.
Richard, do we have to authorize to go forward with the design, or is Bill good to go?
I think we're good to go.
Works for me.
Okay, next up, Beardsley Pump Station, rehab update.
Well, they're working on punch list items right now. The station's up and running. The WPCA guys are moved back into the working space. There's a couple of glitches, like the painter has to touch up, and there's a bunch of little things that need to be addressed, but for the most part, they're 98% done. And everything is, I don't want to curse it, everything is running well.
All right. Any questions
I
from
don't know if
anybody on
today-
that? It's pretty straightforward.
We put the plaque up. I don't know if I shared that. We send out a picture of the plaque. I will make sure to you guys get a picture of the plaque that eventually, if we ever have a chance to get back together, we should have a dedication ceremony, but that may be years from now. Who knows where things are going. But I will send out a picture of the plaque, and you can see what it looks like.
Well, I can walk over there from my office and just take a little video with my phone. I'll do a little presentation.
Yep.
I have a photo I'll send to Bill now so he can distribute to the group.
There we go. All right. Next item, Old Town and Reservoir pump station updates.
We're just finalizing the final things before we go out to the bid documents, and we're almost there.
Good. What's the time? Is that springtime work, or what's the?
I think that it can be almost done anytime. It's not like you need to worry about paving roads and stuff like that. I mean, depending on the winter, I think that's a candidate to go anytime, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be some excavation for the station replacements and for the sewer replacement that we added in for Reservoir Avenue, but I think the timing actually works well because by the time we receive bids, review them, and then get equipment submittals in, they'll be ready to go for more favorable weather in the spring.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Next item, number 5, any other business? Does anybody have anything to bring before the commission at this point? Hearing none, I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A as well. So there being no further business, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
Do
a
we have a
motion.
motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, Margaret, please call the roll.
Richard Boggs,
Aye.
Charles Brezin,
Aye.
John Green,
Aye.
and Frank Regnieri.
Aye.
Very good.
Okay, we are adjourned. It is 7:51.